Hey nerds and nerdettes, welcome to The Pull. I'm your host AJ Kunze, and it is good to be back. Okay, before we get started on this week's episode, I have something very important to talk to you guys about. So I'm just going to come right out and say this, but this will be the final episode of The Pull. The decision to stop doing the show was not an easy one to come by. I just talked about in our last episode how much I enjoy hanging out with you guys and drinking and talking about comic books and how it's kind of one of my favorite parts of the week. And all that stuff is still very much true. But during my time off, I took a lot of time to think about this show and about this channel, and I had to really make peace with some very hard truths. Let me make one thing very clear to you guys before we continue. This is the end of just The Pull. Video Game Time Machine will be continuing. And in fact, the reason I've decided to stop doing The Pull is all about expanding and growing the channel. Listen, as much fun as this is, and as simple as it looks, it does take a lot of time to put this together. In fact, I film on Thursday night, I do a first cut on Friday, and then I spend pretty much the rest of the weekend assembling the episode. And that takes a lot of time. And if you noticed, when The Pull started, a lot of those more thought out, more complex editorial episodes, like the 2 Minutes in Comics, 2 Minutes in Video Games, all those kind of shows stopped. It's because I don't have time anymore. I don't have time to think about thesis and write a whole script and deliver it and do the hours and hours of editing that it takes for those more complex projects. And I love those projects. And look at the views on this show and look at the views on those other shows. This show, as much as I love it, doesn't grow the channel. It doesn't bring in new subscribers. It doesn't bring in new viewers. This show is a vanity project, and I haven't earned the right to have a show like this. I need to be doing things that are going to grow the channel and are going to challenge me. But more than all the grow the channel stuff, I have a lot of projects that I really want to do, and they're more complex and bigger and are going to require a lot of time. And this is going to sound really dramatic, but I don't want to die with those projects still inside me. I want to get them out there, whether they're successful or whether they're liked or whether it ends up making this channel something that will support me or not. I just don't want to die with those things inside me. I'd have a hard time making peace with that later in life. This is probably going to cost us some subs, and that's going to suck because it's a battle to earn every single one. We're going to grow, we're going to get bigger, and more importantly, I'm going to do some things that I've always wanted to do. I want to thank you all so much for sticking with The Pull. As it's grown and changed and as it finally says goodbye. And this time has meant a lot to me, and I've met a lot of people online, and I've met people that are now my friends by making this show. So this was, like I said before, this is not an easy decision. If I seem a little melancholy this week, it's, I don't know, it's kind of a sad moment for me. But I can promise you guys that if you stick with this channel, you're going to be seeing some stuff that you're really going to like. So it's going to challenge you and challenge the way you think about comic books, video games, and all forms of entertainment. So now that I've pretty thoroughly beat that goodbye into the ground, what do you say that you and I, one last time, go around this week in comic books? I have never experienced a book like Secret Wars 2 before. It really feels like a book that was produced mainly out of drunken angst in Marvel editorial offices. This book is an anthology book with stories from a lot of the writers that have been working on Secret Wars throughout the past several months. And what these stories are essentially just these creators making fun of the entire Secret War event. Secret Wars Grand Poobah Jonathan Hickman leads off the event with a story starring himself as he tries to explain to the Marvel editorial staff that he doesn't have an ending for Secret Wars. It's a really fascinating and funny look at the creative process and the frustration and pressure that must go along with telling stories in one of the greatest storytelling machines in the history of pop culture. Jonathan Hickman has a really magical skill to take this big, complex, and goofy story and just sort of poke right at the one sensitive part of it, and this tale is no different. It's funny, it's poignant, it's smart, and it's immediately relatable. Like any anthology book, the story is kind of vacillate in quality, but for the most part, everything here is really funny, really introspective, and it's kind of a cool little look into the writer's room at Marvel offices. And you really get the sense that Marvel gets it. Like, they're telling these big, dumb, fun stories, and they're not taking it too seriously. I think that's part of the reason that they've been so successful lately, is that they understand their audience because, to a certain extent, they are their audience. It really feels like Marvel is a really big fan of Marvel, not in a cynical or cocky way, but in a real pure joy way. And no, this is not me throwing my hat into the dumbest argument in the history of pop culture, that DC versus Marvel. I love them both. They're great. One doesn't have to be better. You can like each book individually. You don't have to freaking pick a team. Anyway, this is one of the most unique comic book reading experiences you will probably ever find, and I highly recommend you check it out. I know I just said I'm not picking a side, but I guess every freaking book is a Marvel book this week. Sorry, guys. Miss Marvel. How would I put this? I really love Miss Marvel on like a lot of different levels. Could spend like literally 30 minutes going into all the reasons it's kind of a brilliant book, whether it's how it bravely yet comically dissects a lot of religious issues, how it kind of takes the piss out of a lot of gender issues. It even takes like real world comic book fandom and inserts it into the actual comic book world and kind of sees all of the fun little tumors that grows when it does that. But we don't have all day. I got like a minute and a half to talk about this book in particular, so let's talk about this issue. The reason that this particular issue of Miss Marvel is brilliant is because it really embraces the old school way of telling a comic book story, yet it does it in such a charming and endearing way that never feels trite or contrived. Let me explain what I'm talking about. This is very much early era Spider-Man storytelling right here. We got a teenage girl trying to balance being a superhero and being a teenage girl. She has crushes and jobs and pressures socially. She struggles to balance the nobility of a superhero with wanting to get credit for what she does. The high school drama she experiences while being a normal teenage girl is placed on the same level as the universe-ending stakes of being a superhero. In this issue, Miss Marvel struggles with seeing her social life completely give away from her, while at the same time, a local business is trying to use this picture of her fisting to promote their business. Her own image as Miss Marvel is completely out of her control, while at the same time, her life as a teenager is also completely out of control. Trust me, I know the feeling of having their life be completely out of your own control, and that's where this book succeeds. It really is just so purely relatable. Miss Marvel feels like a normal person, just a normal person that has to wear an ugly costume and fight giant frogs. All the characters are incredibly nuanced. They're forced to process a lot of uncomfortable stimuli in their own lives, and they don't always make the correct decision. They're conflicted. They're just a bunch of dumb dudes trying to make their way. They dawdle in a universe of grays, just like you and I. If you missed Pre-Secret War Miss Marvel, don't make the same mistake twice. So, science is hard and confusing, and that makes it very scary. That's why in a lot of science fiction storytelling, you see the themes of, we shouldn't have played God, or why did we try to advance humankind in technology? It only came back to destroy us in the form of Terminators, or those squid things from the Matrix. But that is a very strange message to send to your readers, because basically what you're saying is, don't try to advance or get smarter because it's scary and bad, and it'll end up punching a robot fist through your chest. That's why I really appreciate when a piece of science fiction comes along and sort of acknowledges that, and that is what Boy-1 has done. This entire series has been about having that internal argument, about pushing past that fear of the unknown that sort of populates science, and accepting the fact that we as individuals and as people need to grow and push past whatever pile of fat and t-shirt we currently are. It's the conflict at the center of the story, and in this final issue of the series, it really comes to a head. It's all about the main character really coming to terms with the idea that humankind, in order to push forward, has to let go of a lot of things that have traditionally made us human. And yes, the book does briefly float into the what does it mean to be human argument that is just kind of really played out. But the answers and conclusions it comes to are so profound, introspective, and self-aware that you can excuse its moments of being cliche. But the uncomfortable questions don't stop there. This is a book that really challenges the idea of what individual humans define as a home or as their nation. It really sort of plays with the idea of a global society and a global people, which is refreshing and progressive, but it's not in that sort of bumper sticker activism sort of way. It's in a really well thought out way. To only get minorly spoiler-y, it basically posits a reality in which it might actually be better if China was in control of the world. Really, really uncomfortable, right? But what if China was in control of the world and they were making all the right decisions and and we were getting better and like I don't know, progressing as humans. That would be good, right? Right. But that's an uncomfortable feeling. That's what this book is all about. Making you feel uncomfortable and admitting that you don't know as much about yourself or other people as you might have thought. Anyway, if you just love really good high science fiction, think Philip K. Dick or the really good episode of Star Trek, this is a book for you. And it's one that's fuck it, who are we kidding? No one's gonna read this book. No one's gonna buy this book. But we're on the internet, so we're cool hipsters, and we know what's good. Speaking of shit that's gonna go underread, Cognetic is perhaps the single most terrifying thing that has ever existed in the entire world. And it's not because it's full of gore and scary monsters, though it does have its fair share of both. It's because it posits an end of the world that is horrifying. Not because you get pulled apart or crushed by space debris or get infected by an alien parasite. It's because this end of the world is simply you blinking out of existence and something else gaining control of your body. The only thing more terrifying than getting your head chopped off is something other than you being in your head. An ancient race of a handful of immortals has gained the power to essentially take over the consciousness of any person that they make eye contact with. This essentially makes it the most aggressive STD in the world. Sight-transmitted disease. Hey, it wouldn't be the last episode of The Pull if we didn't have one last really terrible joke. Anyway, there is something so incredibly chilling about watching a human being simply stop being a human being and instead becoming a single cell in this giant, organic, thoughtless, beating mass. And to see people so hopelessly struggle against it, to sort of just trying to outrun the flames. If you're looking for good horror, which if you watch the show before, you know I'm a huge fan of horror, this is the best. This is better than Empty Zone. This is better than The Clean Room, better than Empty Man. Read this. And if you're not a fan of horror, still read it, because it's masterfully assembled, it's well thought out, it's smart, it's daring, it's exciting, it's everything you want in a comic book. You know, if we are successful in making this channel something that can support us and become our living, I would really, really love to bring this show back at some point, at a point when I've earned it. So here's really hoping that this isn't really goodbye for The Pull, that is just sort of a break, an off season, if you want to put it that way. I've really appreciated all of your guys' support throughout this ride, and I ask for your continued support and ventures coming forward, because I really, really think you're going to enjoy it. We're already pretty deep into the production of a lot of stuff, and what's been created so far, I'm really, really proud of, and I'm really excited to see what you guys think of it. So for the 100 millionth time, thank you. Thank you so much. This has been really awesome, and I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope you miss me. But please come back and check out all the cool new stuff we're going to be doing here in Video Game Time Machine. Make sure you guys are subscribed so when that new stuff comes out, you know about it. So make sure you come back next Sunday. Make sure you guys come back regularly and check on the new stuff we're going to be doing. And get out of here. Go read comics.